I have one of the craziest stories we've ever covered on this channel. It's the entire progress from a man that was cheated on and broken down. We take a deep look into how he overcame this and what his life is like now. I cannot wait for this one, guys. Here we go. So, last night, my wife of 7 years decided to have a chill-out night. After dinner, she went to the den and was watching her programs, while I flitted between watching the Spurs game, football, soccer, and doing some odds and ends that I had planned. Next thing I know, she's got the wine out, has had 2 bottles of the stuff. At around midnight, I went to check on her and seen that she was cold knocked out on the couch. I went to scoop her up, then her iWatch thing buzzed. A message popped up on the screen. It said something along the lines of, "Haha, I can't do that. My name would knock 7 shades of crap out of me." I wondered what the heck that was all about, so I pressed on it, and it was a conversation between my wife and a friend of mine. Now, I would not say this guy's a close friend of mine, but he's someone I played 5-a-sides with for years, drank with, and have known since we were teenagers. We used to call him Jacket Holder because when we got into scraps as teenagers, he'd always be the guy holding the jackets while everyone else went for it. Right, so, as I said, I pushed on the conversation while this thing's still attached to her wrist. Scrolled up to the top as far as I can tell, it's him at the contact her first, unless she deleted her initial message. There's lots of flirting, little winky emojis going on, but nothing that you could outright say was cheating. Then I got to last night, when she's drunk. She starts openly begging him for sex. I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact words, but she was saying stuff like how much she'd always wanted him, how no one ever would find out if she did want something, and the last one that freaking killed me, that she was great at keeping secrets. I tried to scroll on her watch, but I could not find any other messages, and I don't know her phone password code. I put her in her bed and just sat in the kitchen in shock until I fell asleep. Then I got up for work at about 5:30. When I went to the work van, I just slunk down on the wheel and realized I couldn't face it. So I went back to the house, grabbed a half-drunk bottle of vodka filled to the top with Coca-Cola, and went on a walk down the railway line. We live right beside a lot of woodlands and disused railway lines that go for freaking miles. And I've walked about half the length of it. I'm sitting under a railway bridge like a freaking troll right now, just seething at the whole thing. You probably think there's a fire from about a mile away due to the steam coming out of my ears. So, what do? I don't want to speak to her. I can't even bear to look at her after reading that stuff. It was like a dagger through my heart. I just feel like every morsel of love I had for her has evaporated into thin air after reading her begging like that. Ugh. I honestly want to ghost her, man. If I could, I would never speak to her again. The whole "I'm great at keeping secrets" was the thing that really got me, though. Like, who even are you? It reeks, but it's a case of how far down the rabbit hole do I want to venture. I don't care if I'm being honest. I'm just done. I've never felt so betrayed and disgusted in all my life. The thing is, I've invested so much in her, not just as a partner, but as a person. I loved her so much and thought her personality, and by extension, my personality, reflected that of good people. To realize she's backstabbing little snake makes me feel like a snake. I feel like a worse person than I was yesterday. The only way I can describe it is for someone you look up to, take advice and life lessons from, suddenly finds out they were a pedophile, or even worse, or just a downright creep. Your entire perception of yourself and who you are would be shattered because you've took on board what they've said and invested time into a creep. Ugh, I'm rambling nonsense. I apologize. I'm lucky that in our house it's owned by my parents, who 6 years ago moved to a retirement village and we moved in. The house will be bequeathed to me when they die, but I don't and hopefully won't own it for a long time. They could not be bothered with the upkeep and all the problems, etc., and wanted to see out their final days in peace. So, when we divorce, my soon-to-be ex won't be getting her greedy hands on it. So, what do I do then? I'm honestly thinking of just saying a word and throwing her right out. Also, while walking here, it went through my mind to get my friend, who's a locksmith, to quietly change the locks today. I could feed her any old garbage about something from the doors being broken. She won't care what's going on anyways, as long as I'm about. Then, after he's done, lock the front doors, tell her to come out, look at something out back. When she comes out, just run back inside and lock those damn doors. That sounds childish as duck, doesn't it? Ugh, seriously though, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm staring at a bottle right now, and my life feels like it's been ripped apart from the seams. As for the prick so-called friend of mine, there's no doubt he was up to something here. There's also no doubt I would not have caught wind of this, also, so being seeing him very soon. Never mind holding jackets, he'll be holding his face. Alright, Wednesday 28th of October. Thank you to everyone who reached out to me after my first post. It was really appreciated. So yesterday, after I've written the post and was a complete mess, 2 dog walkers came over to check on me as I was obviously concerning them. I told them everything. They listened, and at first, the first thing they said was, "Son, the worst thing you can do right now is drink. It'll cause carnage." I have to thank her for that, because I was on the highway to hell at that point. I threw the vodka away, got in touch with a friend, and he said I could come to his house for a while, just to calm down. He was at work, but told me where the spare keys were. We live in a small town, maybe 15,000 people, and he was not too far away, so once I got there, I sat on his couch and just tried to calm down. Throughout the morning, I was getting multiple texts, phone calls from my wife asking where I was, what the hell was up, why is my work van still sitting in the driveway? I was nowhere to be seen. I texted her back telling her there was a problem with the engine, so I got a lift into work, which she seemed to buy, as she just texted back saying, okay. When my friend got back from his work at about 5 o'clock, I told him everything that happened and asked him his opinion. I also told him not to tell anyone about the jacket holder, as that might then get back to my wife, which I don't want at this point. I would deal with him later. By that, I mean I'll expose what a little rat he is. Knock the freaking dust out of him doesn't help me at all as of now. As an aside to the people saying he's done nothing wrong, he messaged my wife first. He was being extremely flirty. What the duck is he even playing at messaging my wife for in the first place? He only knows her in passing from afar. Look, I've got no problem with 2 adults conversing with each other, but they hardly know each other, and it was flirty from the start. I think they've seen each other while out, and it's gotten flirty. So, my friend convinced me to try to keep a low profile and see what I could dig up, but at the same time, speak to a lawyer and get the ball rolling in terms of finding out my options, which I've done today. He took me home at about 6 o'clock. I was honestly dead on my feet by that point. I think the adrenaline pumping the entire day, then suddenly stopping, knocks it right out of you. So I was extremely tired when I got home. The second I walked through the door, I knew something was up as my wife was on to me right away, asking me all sorts of questions about work. I asked her why does she even care. She says that I'd left my big flask, my lunch bag, in the front passenger side seat, and something's been up today, she could feel it. I was about to lie, but I was too tired. I could not be bothered putting any sort of charade up, so I just said, yeah, there is something up. That when I was putting her drunk arse to bed last night, a message came up on her iWatch which I read and all the other ones, and that she was a freaking disgusting cheater that I wanted nothing more to do with. Her demeanor went from an arms-crossed person, power, to the scared little girl within about a second. Good at keeping secrets, eh? Begging that little rat for sex. Ugh, yeah, read it all, honey. She started sobbing and I just walked away and upstairs into the shower. When I got out, she was sitting at the top of the stairs crying still, and the excuses started right away. How she was drunk, vulnerable, had never done anything like that before. How he'd messaged her first and it did not mean nothing. She was never going through with it, pretty much everything that everyone on here was saying she would say. Like she was a playbook being played out. The only thing she did not do was try to blame me. She probably knew I would have thrown her through the front door if she tried that crap. I told her, I want a divorce. I want her out of the house within a month. Also told her that she was moving to the spare bedroom. I've been pretty much ignoring her ever since, just scowling at her and shaking my head when she starts waffling nonsense. I don't want to hear it. She slept in the spare room last night. I haven't spoken to or texted her all day. If I'm lucky, maybe she'll be gone when I get back from work. But I'm telling you, my luck's not that good. I suppose. On getting her out, though, I was telling my parents what was happening, and my mother was adamant I was not throwing her out on the streets. Her and my mother are close, and always have been. We've been together for 11 years. My mother was saying she just made a mistake, and that we should sort it out like adults, that we've been through too much together, and that she did not actually do anything. It was just mere words. She completely took her side over mine. I couldn't believe it. Could this freaking duck me here? Like, do I have no right to ask her to leave if my mom's against it? It's literally gonna be my house when my parents die. I did nothing wrong, so I'm not leaving. It's probably gonna turn into a War of the Roses Part 2. I managed to get myself an appointment with a divorce lawyer for next week, so I'll be going to discuss my options. Until then, I'm just going to ignore my soon-to-be ex-wife, I guess. I know she's probably not going to admit anything else now. I'll never know if she was a really good liar or she was just talking crap to him to get on side with her for an affair. Anyways, sorry for the delay in the update. Just got the chance to write it now as I'm finishing work. We'll be back for the funhouse, I suppose. Monday, November the 16th. It's been 20 days since I found out my wife was trying to cheat on me with my friend, and the situation has become hellish. I gave her a month to get out, and she's been sleeping in the spare room, but it's clear now she does not have any intention of going after she got into the ear of my mother. She doesn't have anywhere to go, at any rate, but that's not my problem. I've seen my divorce lawyer multiple times, and I'm now in the process of drawing up the papers and a divorce petition, having my wife serve the papers. I've also opened my own bank account and taken 50% of the balance of our shared account. The atmosphere around the house has been weird, to say the least. The living room has turned into a no man's land, where no one frequents as we both spend the majority of our times in our rooms. I've also intentionally been working late, so I don't have to interact with her too much. I've been completely ignoring her, but after reading about the 180, having started implementing that and been civil, if a little cold towards her. I'm so glad I did this, as I was beginning to feel like a monster, refusing to acknowledge her existence. It was not the right way to behave, and I ended up feeling like the one who had wronged her, rather than the other way about. The only time I broke from my 180 was when I walked into the bathroom last week. She was sitting on the floor crying. I helped her up and instinctively gave her a hug, though it was more of a there, pal type hug than one with much love attached to it. The sad thing is that I'm so suspicious of her now that I would not put it past her to be waiting on me coming in so she could put on a performance. The thing is, that probably isn't even true, but this is that sort of stuff that's going through my head. This environment's so toxic. She's been crowing about how she'll do anything and everything to save this here marriage. Anything to prove to me that it was just a silly mistake. So I brought up a lie detector test. I don't plan on ever getting one done. Wouldn't even know where to start. I just wanted to gauge her reaction. She was all for it. Well, until a few hours later when she came home to me, tablet in hand, going on and on about how inaccurate they are. And the anxiety and nervousness could throw a false reading. And with her and her anxiety disorder and all, I just laughed. Wasn't even a normal little chuckle either. It started as a bit of a cackle and ended with a childish giggle. It appears she would do everything to save this marriage. Well, everything except take a lie detector test, that is. It doesn't even matter now. I meant what I said in my original post. Even more so, of love. This little morsel of love I had for her dissipated into the atmosphere after I read her say those horrible things. I don't see her as my true future anymore. The person I could tell anything to and would trust with my life. I just see trash. Trash that needs to be taken to the bin. It's stinking up my place. Jacket Holder has been the talk of the town since I exposed him to our friend group a few weeks back. It's safe to say he has no friends left among us, and has been completely ostracized. I tried calling him a few times, but he refused to answer. Then he blocked my number. Duck that little rat. I hope it's worth it. I've spoken to my mother multiple times about this, and during a heated argument asked her why she was taking my wife's side. Like, was there something she wasn't telling me here? What was she expecting? Us to live like roommates? Go on like nothing happened? It's ridiculous. She said she always seen my wife as the daughter she never had, but wanted. My mother had a stillborn daughter before I was born, and it's haunted her. So she latched on to my wife, and it's done since we were together. As I previously said, they have a close bond. The fact that my wife doesn't have any family, and only a few friends who have their own busy lives and families, means if I threw her out, she would be all alone. And my mom thinks that's unacceptable, especially during a pandemic. She tried to get me to come to a compromise, saying that in 3 or 4 months we can look at it again and see where we're mentally, and is pushing me to try couples counseling before I throw in the towel. I'm not doing that. The thought of being in the same house as my wife over Christmas makes me feel ill. She wants to do it right as she does every year. It'll be a complete shit show. My dad, love him, has never been much of a talker. Never up nor down, just always there. He's quiet, proud, but a timid man, and my mother's word has always been one that matters in our household. People on here have been telling me that I'm selfish and spoiled because it's not my house. And I have no right to make demands, but It's now a case of my wife or me or my parents. It's worst comes to worst, then I'm ready to walk out the door and never come back. Duck this house. I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror, with some semblance of self-respect and someone who has to keep their word. This debacle. If I do leave, my friend has said I can stay with him for a few weeks or so till I get myself sorted. If I walk through that door, though, I'm done with my parents. I'll never speak to them again in my life. They probably see it as me giving up on them, me walking away without trying to at least have a go at fixing things first. I see it as them choosing someone who broke my heart over me. Like, what'll this be logistics of this one? I'm lost. Just her staying there herself, my mother and father looking after a backstabber, while their flesh and blood goes off alone? A little more info on the house. My parents let us move in a year after our wedding. It was an apparent belated wedding gift. Although that was just chatter from them at the time, there were always plans of moving out and moving us in. I've spent tons of thousands of dollars over the years, but that's neither here nor there. I have fantasies of leaving this all behind, going somewhere new, starting fresh, but I don't have anywhere else to go. I've lived in this town my entire life. It's all I know. I'm being too harsh here, I don't know. I'm literally ready to slingshot my parents right out of my life, but I feel so torn. Why am I the one who has to lose everything and everyone? I've tried to be a good sport and always thought you make your own luck. That good things happen to good people. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe I deserve all I freaking get. Wednesday, December 2nd. Well, since this morning, I no longer call that house home. I see on the calendar that my wife had a hospital appointment with her ophthalmologist. So, knowing she would be gone for a few hours, I took that as an opportunity to get my stuff together and move the heck out. Which I have. After getting my things moved and sorted, I just put the house keys on the kitchen table, along with the divorce papers. I received them from the divorce lawyer last week and was on my way. I've blocked both my wife and mother's phone numbers and any communication I have with my wife going forward. It's all going to be done through my lawyer. In terms of my living situation, I'm staying with a friend for a week or two, but hopefully I should be in my own rented place before Christmas. I haven't spoken to my parents in a few weeks. Last time we spoke, it was via text message, and tried to tell my mother in explicit detail the things my wife was saying during her text-to-jacket holder. Why it hurt me so much, and why I did not think it was her first time doing it with the whole quote, "I'm good at keeping secrets" comments, and thus could never trust her again. My mother texts back saying she could not speak to me while I speak like this, and she would just let me, quote, cool off. She tried to call me a few days later, and I just blanked her call, as I said a bit further up. Since today, I've blocked her completely. I feel so let down by my parents at this point. It almost feels worse than the original betrayal from my wife. The way I'm feeling right now, I don't think I'll ever speak to them again. I think in times of strife, you look to your family to be strong, to be a rock, and give you the wronged one's support. My parents have been weak. They've made me feel like the one in the wrong here, like I'm overreacting, and it's me that's ripping this family apart. Well, it's not. I didn't ask them to move mountains for me, just move my cheating wife out of the house. They made their choice. My father also had the chance to put his foot down for once in his life and stand up for me. But you know what? He didn't. You make your choices and you live with them, I guess. Reading some of the comments on here from my previous post, people have been saying things like, quote, "I threw in the towel so easy. I was looking for a way out and did not love my life because, well, I did not try hard enough to save things, but that's not true. I loved my wife more than anyone on this earth. I was broken when I discovered what she was doing. I think we just all have boundaries, and to be honest, when those boundaries have been crossed, things change irrevocably. When I read those horrible text messages, something changes inside of me. I fell out of love with her, like being snapped out of a spell in the movies. Anything tried after that's just delaying the inevitable. I have to say that I'm interested in the whole dynamic of their relationship now that I'm gone. Like, are my parents going to continue supporting her, knowing that it's finished their relationship with their own son? As for me, I'd love to travel. My wife hated flying, so most of her holidays have been to southern England. The likes of New Quay and Torquay and Cornwall and Devon. So it would be great to travel abroad again. The last time I was abroad was when I was 20 for a friend's holiday in Greece. So 13 long years. I'd love to see America. So once this pandemic calms down, I've got my sight on the States. Well, that's about it for me, I guess. This will be my last post as I don't want to outstay my welcome. And I don't think there's much more to say any rate. If you want to see how I'm going down the line, shoot me a message. I'll try to keep you in the loop. Wednesday, May 26, 2021. It's been over 7 months since I first posted, and honestly, I thought that was it for me, as I didn't have any more advice or need for it. I've made my decision and done what I said I would. But I got a phone call this morning that's dragged me back into the mire. I've moved 15 miles away, changed my phone number, and am still in the process of divorcing my wife. She's completely ignored all the requests from my divorce lawyer to cooperate, which has hindered things. We're now in the process of putting in an application for deemed service and trying to have her served officially by the court system. If she continues to ignore, then I can proceed with the divorce without her input. Well, this morning, while at work, I got a phone call from my friend telling me that my dad was trying to get in touch as my mother's not well, and would it be okay if I gave my number? I said okay, and my dad called me to tell me mom's in the hospital. She's stable, though not great. Obviously, I was shocked, as I've not heard my dad's voice for so long. It was also the most emotional I've ever heard him. He told me mom really wants to see me, so I would meet him at the hospital tonight and go in and see her with him. I said okay. I've arranged to meet him outside the hospital. I ended up going home from work as I could not concentrate, and I'm climbing the walls here wondering if I've made the right decision. Wondering if I'm about to get dragged back into this crap show that I've walked so far away from. I've never felt so nervous in all my life, and the lack of control I have over the situation has sent my mind spiraling in lots of different directions. I feel like I'm walking into a burning building blindfolded, with no idea where the exits are. Why does she want to speak to me now? Has she had a change of heart? Unless she's also had a personality transplant while in there, I kind of feel it's unlikely. Will my wife be there? I have no interest in seeing her. I'm still angry about what transpired with them, and the way they took my cheating wife's side over mine. I've been going back and forth in my head about going to this, but I'll go. I was also thinking about seeing if she wanted to speak over the phone instead, but not sure if she would do that or even if she's well enough. I feel like the bad guy here and that I might have caused this from walking away. How do you handle this? Saturday, May 29th, 2021. So, I did end up going to the hospital on Wednesday night after much thinking. I was genuinely about to back out at the last minute, as I felt my bottle crashing. But I needed some closure and knew that I would not forgive myself if I didn't go and something happened. When I drove to the hospital car and parked, I had this surreal feeling of paranoia and was half expecting my wife to jump out behind a bush or something. I met my dad at the entrance. It was pretty awkward. As he tried to hug me, I said no. I then said if my wife is here in any way, shape, or form, then I'm going to turn out and walk away. He assured me she wasn't, and we made our way to the ward, where Mom was. When I saw my mother, I got the fright of my life. She looked like she's been in the wars. Never have I looked so frail at her. She's gotten extremely black eyes, so much bruising and purple yellowness down her side of her face. She took a fall, broke 2 ribs, shattered her elbow, and banged one side of her head on the ground. So elbow, ribs, and head in that order as she went plummeting towards the earth. She looked zombified but perked up when she saw me. She told me how she misses me, and that she wasn't sure if she'd ever see me again. I told her if she had really wanted to get a hold of me, she could have done so. We spoke for a bit about what exactly happened and how she was down for a few hours before my dad found her. Also, she was determined to get back to normal and mend bridges with me. I brought up my wife, and I've been pushing for a divorce, but she was either ignoring the letters or wasn't getting them. So I asked if she's still in the house. Mom admitted she was, and Dad started to look uncomfortable. I just looked away in disgust. Mom started saying how lost my wife is without me, and that she's not in a good shape. I knew then nothing will change. She's not had an epiphany or seeing things from a new perspective. She just wants the status quo back. She said the house is my home and always will be. But I told her I don't want it. It means nothing to me anymore, and it only holds bad memories. I stayed for under an hour in all. When I left, I said I want to get in contact, I will. But don't be waiting over the phone for me to call, as you might be waiting a while. When Dad walked me out, he asked if he would keep in touch with him. I said I would. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. Time will tell. When I got home, let me just tell you, my emotions were all over the place. From sadness to anger, but I'm glad I went. Could not help but think about my wife as well and what she was once meant to me. It'll never not hurt. When I think about everything that's happened in the last 7 months, it honestly doesn't feel real. The speed at which everything fell apart was just spellbinding. I know life comes at you fast, especially when you're not paying attention. I wasn't paying attention. It was just sheer luck I found out about her trying to cheat on me. Cosmic coincidence, nothing more. I never saw the signs or put everything together. I just saw something on her watch, and it tore my life apart. I now know that it wasn't the only time. I know it in my heart. I see what she is and feel no love for her, only contempt. I feel she stole the best years of my life. When I think about all the good times, they're just soured. It feels like someone else's life, not mine. My friend was saying I should see a therapist or something to try to let everything out, or else this will fundamentally change who I am and the way I build relationships going forward. That's something I'm going to do, I think, as I do feel a bit broken inside. The last 7 months have been the worst of my life, but I'd rather they happen than been kept in the dark. I'm just hurt that it happened the way it did. But you can't choose the way someone ducks you over, I suppose. You just have to learn from it. I remember reading about loyalty being the most undervalued character trait. I see that now. It's probably because you don't really know if someone's truly loyal to you until, well, they're not. It's not something you deal with every day, but now more than ever, I know how important a trait is. Tuesday, July 20th. Firstly, I'm now in the home stretch terms of divorce from my wife. She signed the divorce papers and sent them to my divorce lawyer. So that's all that's left now are the formalities. She sent me a message via my father, where she said sorry for not letting me move on. That she thought she could save things, but now she knows she can't. She has to move on for her own well-being as well. I thank her for seeing some sense. She doesn't want anything in the divorce and said she's going to move out of the house when she can get on her feet, which I'm okay with. In terms of my mother, I haven't spoken to her yet, but my dad says she's doing a lot better after getting out of the hospital and getting some normality back. I don't know how things will pan out with them, but I've said that if the house is going to be mine, then I want them to put it in my name now, to give me some security. Then we can start trying to build bridges. We'll see how that goes. My biggest battle is ahead. They're in my head, and trying to get over everything that's happened. The brain is a wonderful yet frightening thing. To give you an example, I can still taste the truffles I scoffed, then threw up at my grand's house when I was 5. I've never eaten truffles again, but I can still taste those ducking things 30 years later, when I think about it. What I'm getting at is I don't want to harbor thoughts, feelings and opinions about everything that's happened 30 years down the road. I don't want to be one of those older people who's had everything good knocked out of them from pain of life. You often hear about those people, how they used to be good, kind, or funny, but somewhere along the line, they've had those experiences they've had forever change them, turned them into a person they never wanted to be, and all that's left is pain. I don't want to be that person. I have to let this pain go before it consumes me. I've started therapy and spoken to a psychiatrist both over the phone and in person. It's helped me a lot to speak candidly about stuff. If only for a little bit. My psychiatrist also said something to me that really struck a chord. While I was moaning about how my best years were behind me, she said, "Your best years are the years you've got left." What I think she meant is the past is gone. It doesn't exist, except in your mind. But the here and now does, and you can choose to make the most of it or live in the past that isn't even real to anyone but you. It's definitely a phrase I'm going to try and remember when I feel down. I said in one of the previous posts that I wanted to travel, and that's finally happening. My friend's committed to coming with me, and we're booking a flight to New York at the beginning of October for a week. I'm really looking forward to it. I've always wanted to see New York where the leaves change. Reminds me of that movie, You've Got Mail. I want this to be just the beginning of my adventures in terms of traveling. I want my later 30s to be littered with memories from escapades I've had abroad. Well, that's the plan anyways. All I know is that for a first time in what seems like a long time, I'm waking up with a hope in my heart and walking with a spring in my step. If that's not progress, I don't know what is. Well, I told you this story was insane. It was a long journey, but we took it with OP, and now we know how OP's overcome so much. Guys, if you could just give any sort of advice, drop it down below what you thought of this entire journey, and maybe some advice you would like to tell OP. Thank you so much for tuning in this far. It was a wild ride. I hope to see you guys in the next one, and just know, if there's any updates for this story, I'll be sure to update, so subscribe so you don't miss that. Have a wonderful night. The latest Mr. Reddito producer, Christine Billings. Thank you so much for the support.